Today's top story from the perspective of someone who's there.
You are looking live.
This just in.
Not my beat.
Our guest today played 14 years in the NFL, now an analyst for Command Center and the Washington Commanders on their YouTube page and all their media platforms. It's our guy, Santana Moss. What's up, Tana? How are you, bro?
Great. What's good, buddy?
I'm just happy to be dry today after yesterday, bro. That was not a very fun practice for those of us that had to stand on the sideline. I imagine when you were playing though, like that's fun weather to go out and goof around in the spring too.
Hell no, I dreaded those days. I'm a receiver, bro. All I have is my hands with me and my feet, so I have to have good, a nice dry ground, and I want a dry football as well to catch. So I would have hated to be out there for my first day of OTAs in that nasty weather. But hey, we got to do what we got to do.
Fair enough. The linemen are out there having a great time. They're just out there slopping around. That makes sense, especially for a guy who's has such quick feet, or as quick feet as you did, slowing you down. Not very fun. But speaking of fun, the way they start the practice with the pad drill and the energy and everything, like does that remind you of anything that you'd seen during your playing days? And like how significant is the energy that's brought to practice every day by Dan Quinn and this new coaching staff?
I mean, it didn't remind me of nothing that I went through. I do remember when I first got here in '05, the way Greg Williams used to have our defense meet on the field before the first whistle blew for us to stretch. And it was alarming to me that like he had like a little drill that he had in my ball reacting drill where he threw a ball in a different area of the field, and they all had to be there, it's not, at one time, on one accord, one beat. And that was alarming to me, just of how he was starting those guys and getting them ready before practice even started. And if you could look at that season, that defense flew around. And I think for the most part, the whole time he was there. So that was something that was a little familiar with it, but I never seen anything like it. I was a little alarmed by it during minicamp when I watched it, but I was geeked at the same time because, that's what you want. You want that coaching staff to have that kind of understanding and that perspective that, we can't allow these kids or these guys to come in and try to get ladder up as the practice go on. Let's get it all out the way now and get your adrenaline, pumping and that blood in your system to flow so you can go out there and have a productive day in practice.
I mean, I'd also ask you, Santana, as a guy who played for so many different coaches over the years, both with the Jets and then obviously your 10 years here, like the energy and the monotony of an NFL spring, nevertheless, when you get into training camp during a season, like how important is it to mix it up and to have a way to keep guys engaged so that guys don't get bored and lose that attention to detail and because they're professionals, but they're also human beings. Like how important is that freshness and to kind of have that spark every single day? And if you have any stories from your career of like teams that did that well or teams that didn't, I think that would certainly be illuminating.
I think it's key. I think I look back at the times of not doing it, me not participating or having that, going on. And you get those days or you get that little stint of weeks or whatever you might pile up where you just don't have the energy, man, and you're trying to fight through it because of it's just your job to fight through it. But then you get out of the funk one way or another. Now, if you're gonna bring that kind of energy from a coaching staff every day, it's going to be like that. That's going to be our know-all. That's what I'm going to understand about this team, and that's how we're going to, conduct business. Then every man in that locker room who's going to be on this team is going to have that mindset before they step on the field. So it's great to see that that's what they're trying to let them know. This is what we do. This is how we do things. And now you're not going to have to be so worried about a guy not being ready or not being prepared because he got to have that mindset as he hit the door to that field. Because if you don't have that mindset, you'll definitely be left behind.
Santana Moss, of course, you can watch him on Command Center on the Commanders YouTube page. 14-year NFL vet with us here on the Hoffman Show. What's your first impressions of Jayden Daniels, getting to see him in rookie minicamp over the weekend and then in the OTA session yesterday?
I was, first thing, look well. I mean, I don't like to get too high on a kid. I don't like to put too much pressure on anybody. It don't matter who you are. I think look like a quarterback, look like a second overall pick quarterback. You know what I mean? Like I say, some of the things that was glaring was his footwork, just how that ball jumped out of his arm, those things like that. You can't really, you either got it or you don't. And when you look at a kid that they talk so much about, the dynamic of him was because of how well he ran with the football. They never try to highlight how well he threw the football. You know what I'm saying? Like, this guy did both of those things well. And now you get a guy here and there say something about it, but that's not just what he does. He's the guy that, when in danger, he can use his legs. So, in this league, the way the defensive guys are getting each and every year, getting bigger, faster, stronger, we're going to need that mobility back there in that pocket. So I'm thankful that we have a guy like him, and I'm just now going to allow the process of his maturation kind of, take his course. However long it takes or however fast he catches on, man, I'm ready for it because I understand it's not something that you can just come into this thing and be ready for. It's going to take time, and when he's ready, man, I'm ready to watch.
Yeah, no doubt. I think one thing that stuck out to me, Tana, kind of on those lines yesterday was watching this staff coach. I really just like the way they taught from everything that I could see. We're watching from the sidelines. There's only so much we can hear, but just like it made sense to me the way they were doing it and some of the cool things they did from, all the quarterbacks throwing at once in the drills to try to maximize those reps to kind of how they stacked the technique to like introduce one part, then introduce the next part, and let guys really practice it in a way that is a good teaching method. What stood out to you from watching Cliff and his offensive staff especially work with their guys yesterday?
Yeah, I think what stood out to me is just some of the things that I saw with some of the younger players. I saw McCaffrey kind of talking to, Terry at one point, and I saw, different things like that stood out. I saw, one of the coaches, I'm not sure, was it, I can't even think of the name or even the player, but someone did something wrong, and I saw how that coach threw into him and told him, let's come back and let's do it right. That's what you want, man. And this is something that when you look back at, how they did things in Dallas on that defense, and it's not nothing for you to sit there and question now why they were so dynamic, why they were so good, because they was well coached, and that's something that when you watched us play at times, you worried, you thought to yourself like, okay, we got the bodies here, we got the guys. What are we missing? Because the coach has been here for a while, but the play has dropped. Is it coaching? Is it the players? So, that's something that always going to always be in the back of my head because I've been there, done that. I've been a guy that been taught well, but I also been a guy that wasn't being taught well and still had to go out there and be productive. And I know how it is. If you're not a professional, if you're a guy that's going to allow sometimes that to affect you, you can see a decline in your play. So I'm happy that we have a staff, for the most part, from what we both see, that is hands-on, man. They're out here getting the job done, making sure that these guys understand how they want them to, play. And, like Coach Witt said when he first got here, man, we only have one way of doing things. And if you're not fit for that, then, I'm pretty sure you won't be here.
Yeah, I'm curious, Tana, throughout your career, I'll set up kind of the contrast that I'm drawing here, then ask you the question. I think that'll be easier way to do it. So yesterday they've got the dual 7-on-7s, right? And Cliff is kind of running one side, Tavita Pritchard's running the other in terms of the play caller. But that means that Cliff is on one side, Joe Witt's on one side, and half the guys that are practicing, they don't see those reps live, and clearly they're going to rely on the fact that it's all on film to go back and make the corrections and coach. And for instance, yesterday, Jayden Daniels was not on Cliff Kingsbury's side. So like Cliff's certainly going to watch all those reps, but it's not going to be in person. And I'm curious in your career if you had any coaches that kind of operated like that, and what difference it is to be that reliant on the film versus the ability to correct things in real time.
Well, I was asked that by Logan when we was doing our field pass part of that practice, and I didn't remember, but Logan refreshed my memory that we did that with Kyle and Mike Shanahan. So I do recall, that particular drill is to maximize everyone's reps. That's basically because you're out there for a short period of time, and you don't have enough time to really see every guy if you just had all us doing it at once. So basically, I'm going to take all the young guys, I'm going to put you over here. Then all the guys who veterans or who potentially might be in the second or first group, I'm going to put you over here so we can get everybody enough reps that we get on tape. And then, now we can go in there and be coaches and go watch this film. And you're going to have individual, meeting rooms also. So those guys get to watch it together. Now they get to sit there and watch everyone's reps instead of him having to coach a guy or be sitting there waiting for, you to get 2 or 3 reps. Now you get a chance to get more than just half of the reps. You get to do all the reps.
Speaking of Logan, did he ask you the other day / bring up a story that came up on our podcast about the time that you had to correct him in a game because he didn't line up correctly?
He didn't ask me recent about it, but we talked about this like a year ago, and I remember when he brought it up because I do remember like I'm one of those guys, man. Like I very seldom say anything to anybody. You know what I mean? Because I'm gonna be sharp, and as long as you handle your business, we're going to be good. But, we all hold each other accountable on the field. And Logan has always been sharp. He was a sharp young man when he was here. That's why he made the team. I give Logan a lot of praise because I understand what he doesn't have in his tool belt, or what they consider he didn't have at that position. But he was a damn good blocker, and he's a beast of a young man. When you look at him, just his stature alone. So he fitted well in the packages that we used him in. And so when it came to lining up, alignment and assignment is like number one for me. When I'm teaching football or teaching wide receivers, I say the first thing I need you to know is know what you're doing and know how to line up. We never had that problem. So when it happened, it was just in the heat of the moment. I kind of screamed at him a little bit, yelled at him a little bit, and I think it caught him off guard. But it was just one of those things, now he knew that, Tanner about his business and we got to be on point. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, for sure. It was so. I'll try to quickly for the audience retell the story, but if you want the full story, go to Take Command, the pod, of course, that I think most people listening know that I do with Logan. But basically, we were talking about like language and verbiage, and we were curious what Cliff's going to do with Jayden, and we were talking about how the offense that you guys had under Kyle was incredibly wordy, and there's just these long, almost like run-on type of sentences where you'd call 2-3 plays, and there was one formation where Kyle basically trusted Logan to remember that he was supposed to line up in a 3-point stance instead of a 2-point stance, but there wasn't an actual word for it. They were just reliant on Logan to remember. And if he was in a 2-point stance, he wasn't going to be able to get out of it fast enough to do what he needed to do so that you could have your choice route be clean. Yeah. And sure enough, he lines up out there and forgets, and it's in a 2-point stance, and you're like, dude, you got to get up. And Logan was like, well, if I stand up now, they're going to call me for a penalty. And so they called timeout. I think I actually did a decent job of retelling that, Tana. But anything you want to add, by all means, go ahead.
No, it wasn't. Honestly, man, he had to refresh my memory when he did it. But it was crazy. It was as soon as he said something about it, I recalled the whole situation. Yeah. I was like, and I can't remember what tone I used or what word I used because I know my vocabulary is short. But I know it was somewhere around the lines of, what the hell are you doing, Logan? Like, you know what I mean? So, and he looked at me and he was like, oh, man, my bad. But, yeah, we caught it just in the nick of time. But you have to understand, too, where I'm coming from with that. At that point in time in my career, I'm only coming in on third down. I'm coming in, very seldomly. So when I'm getting opportunities to get the ball and get, and have my play called, everybody got to do their job. That's how critical this game is, especially as a receiver. I tell folks time and time again, like, you sit there and look at these guys' numbers now because they're getting a hell of a lot of attempts. When I was playing this league, man, we was a run-oriented team for every team I played for. And so when you get your opportunity, you get your opportunity. Everybody has to handle their job. So that's one part of someone not handling his job at the point or at the time, but we caught it quick enough where we didn't miss that play. We ended up getting the timeout and then gotten a chance to do it again.
Yeah, Santana Moss with us. An unplanned story time with Santana, throwback, if you know, with us here on the Hoffman Show. So with that, Tana, and kind of looking at this team starting to learn this offense, I thought it was notable that there didn't seem to be a lot of mental mistakes. Like there wasn't a lot of guys lining up in the wrong place, or there was one moment where I think it was Diami and B-Rob like smashed into each other on the first route, I think, of 7-on-7s, or actually I think at that point it was even an offense on air. They ran into each other, B-Rob smashing into Diami on a wheel route. But outside of that, it was a pretty clean day of practice. What do you make of kind of how Cliff and the offensive staff is dosing this so that they can have these clean practices? And what's it like to kind of go through that experience as a player of learning a new offense?
It's no other way to get out there and get some good work in without, having confusion and all these guys lining up wrong. So you give them a spoonful, you give them enough where they can basically sit back and say, okay, these are the things we putting in today. That's one of the things I loved about, and I was in many different offenses, and the one that I recall the most, I guess you can say the Kyle Shanahan offense, is because I played a lot more in that offense, even though Jay Gruden was my last year here. But I remember, you know, and a lot of that stuff kind of ran together because, you know, Sean McVay was our offensive coordinator, so it was still familiar stuff that we ran similar. But when they package came in 2010, you got to think, I was going into almost my 9th and 10th year of my career. So when you get a new offense, then you're saying to yourself, like, well, damn, how long is it going to take me? And one of the things that great OCs and great coaching staff does is, you know, they give you the playbook, but every day they give you a little package of what we're doing today. So it might be 20-something plays, and in every individual meeting room, that individual coach is going over, hey, this is what we're running. This is what the Z, you know, running. This is what the X running. This is what the Y running. This is what the G running. So you get a chance to really pencil in, you know, what you're doing, you know, individually. So if you don't know your job, then you just one of those, you know, airheads that need to, you know, find a new way how to be coached or how to learn. But when you have a coaching staff that's hands-on the way Cowden did things and allowed us to say, okay, this is the playbook. So what you do with this on your own time is what you do. But for today, this is what we're running. You can't ask for it no better. You know what I mean? No better way. And I think that's what you're probably seeing out there with these guys. These coaches giving them the playbook, but at the same time, we only going to work on what we went over today on the field today. We're not going to worry about all the other stuff until we complete this and make sure that we all on point with this group of plays.
Last two things for Santana Moss here on the Hoffman Show. I'm sure you heard, Tana, the story that Sam Cosmi told after practice yesterday about how Bobby Wagner was like, watch out for the guard pulling. And Sam's like, I'm trying to hide it. How did he know? And they were able to have a conversation after. Did you have anything like that during your career? And how is that relationship between offensive and defensive players? How helpful can that be for a team when they're not siloed like they are on so many NFL teams where those two sides of the ball don't really talk to each other that much?
Well, I don't recall someone ever finding out what I was going to do because, you know, one of the things about receivers, we use splits, and I think the one thing that's given to us is how you come out the huddle. And like if you come out the huddle running to your spot, you could kind of give it away that you're, you know, might be in this progression of the, you know, the ball coming your way. But that's one of the reasons why our staff or our receiver coach always tell you, I need you sprinting out the huddle every time. But I remember one time in practice, me and Carlos Rogers was going, and he's a young pup, and I kind of knew I could probably, you know, play with his eyes. And I lined up tight, and I started looking wide at, you know, where I wanted him to kind of believe where I was coming outside of him, you know, stretching the field and getting back to the sideline. And he bit it, and he said, hey, he's going outside. And I remember the hike of the ball, I took that outside stem to get him to open up, and I went right back up the seam and broke it off and ran like an in route. And he never saw it run that way from that tight of a split. And it was great because Carlos Rogers was a great reader. He was a great, you know, cover guy for us. But he told me, he said, man, Tanner, what you did with your eyes and the split kind of had him in no man's land. So I think, you know, as a young guy, you have to try to get all those tricks and trades from veterans like, you know, Bobby Yellowjacket, as Fred Smoot would call him. But I'm glad, you know, he was able to tell Cosby that because if he sees it, there's no telling what the other teams and guys who play in his position sees, you know, as little clues or nuggets that can, you know, probably work in their favor.
No doubt. And last but not least, I got to ask, what'd you see from the receivers, and specifically, you already talked about him a little bit. What'd you see from Luke McCaffrey this weekend in rookie camp and then yesterday in OTAs?
I can say one thing about Luke McCaffrey, man. It's in him. You know, he is daddy's son. You know, we talk about Ed McCaffrey and how hard he ran the ball and how every time he ran, I made a cut, it was violent. That's what I see in Luke McCaffrey. Every cut, every plan is very violent. And then, you know, he got a ball thrown to him in the back of the end zone during that 7-on-7 period, and he located and ran it down. You know, I mean, great. It was a great location of the ball. Like, he peeked at it a little bit, and then he just went and got it. So some of those things stands out, man, especially from a young guy, man. You know, it don't seem like this stuff when it comes to how he was brought up in this game, like some of the stories I heard from his brother talking about how his dad treated their everyday, you know, life when it came to football and recovery and all that stuff. I'm not surprised. You know, I thought he should come in here and have that kind of motor and have that kind of discipline about this game. But when you actually watch it and knowing he's a rookie, he doesn't look like a rookie right now. And like I said before, it's early, so I'm not trying to get too far ahead of myself, but I like what I see.
Yeah, we can only judge on what we see so far, and what we've seen is pretty good. Santana Moss with us here on the Hoffman Show. Tana, always appreciate it, bro, and I'll see you back out there in Ashburn soon.
Anytime, brother.
That's Santana Moss with us here on the Hoffman Show. 14 years, of course, in the NFL, and you can watch him now with Logan, with Smoot, with everybody over there in Ashburn on Command Center on their YouTube page. They do live practice coverage and, of course, reaction. They have a couple of podcasts that they do as well, so you can check out Tana on all of the Commanders' social and media platforms.
What's up, kiddos? It's your boy Clinton Yates from ESPN. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 9-8. Tell your mama I said what's up.